What else do you know about Godin?
He must have done something remarkable. Bismarck was not a generous man. He liked to string people along with promises, but rarely came through. He did for Godin, though. He gave him a royal title and lands in 1863. And that was the last reference I found to him.
Well, how could he just disappear?
It's not that unusual. Back then, when you were given a title, you usually changed your name and moved to a place where no one knew your past, so you could act with impunity. Or be a pompous ass and get away with it.
Is there any way to find out what Godin was called after he got his title?
Is it that critical?
It might be.
Well, you could send away for a copy of the entitlement deed, assuming it has been destroyed during one of the wars.
Godin's new name would be on it. But you would need a research permit from the government to access those records, and they can be very hard to get. A lot of red tape.
Great. What do you know about Ludwig's hunting accident?
A couple of years ago, I was introduced to this great old man, a real old-world farmer. Well, his grandfather was Richard Horning, Ludwig's equestrian. Oh, he told some great Ludwig stories. Sometimes I get lucky. Anyway, he said that after the hunting accident, Ludwig got terribly ill, that he had a fever and was acting crazy. They were afraid that the wolf had been carrying a disease or that the bite had gone septic.
A wolf bit him?
Yeah, it's not so unusual. There were a lot of wolves in the Alps back then. The servants were really worried, but Ludwig recovered, physically anyway. Horning's grandfather said it was the fever that broke Ludwig's mind, that he was worse than ever after that.
What do you mean Ludwig got worse after the accident?
Ludwig always had been a very private person. But after the accident, he got darker, more crazy. Towards the end, he was even forcing his servants to enter his chambers bent over so they couldn't see his face. Horning's grandfather said his temper was fearsome. He would fly into a rage at the least mistake.
Must have been terrified of him.
Yes, well... Horning's grandfather felt sorry for Ludwig, and Ludwig hated his own violence. He was always giving gifts to his servants to apologize.
You mentioned that there were other reasons why Ludwig's servants feared him.
That's another of Horning's mysteries. There's a story about Neuschwanstein. Apparently there was a period of time of 2 or 3 months when Wagner would come and visit him
Wagner?
there. Yeah. The two would lock themselves in the singers' hall. Horning's grandfather said the sounds that came from there were awful. Well, the servants had superstitious minds anyway. Some of them quit over it, just walked away.
What kind of sounds?
Horning's grandfather called them heartbreaking and ungodly. Maybe it was Wagner trying to sing.
Well, I guess that's all for now. Thanks for your help.
It's my pleasure. And if you ever want to talk again, just give me a call. I'll meet you down.
I will. Thanks.
Servus.
Well, bye. I wonder what it felt like under there.
Our tour begins in the entry hall. Ludwig II lived from 1845 to 1886. He assumed the Bavarian throne at the age of 18 when his father died. Ludwig's passion was building castles. He built 3 during his lifetime: Linderhof, Herrenchiemsee, and Neuschwanstein. Plans for a 4th castle, Falkenstein, were underway when he died. In addition to his obsession with building, Ludwig also had a passion for classical heroic German mythology, a taste he shared with the German opera composer Richard Wagner. Neuschwanstein is decorated throughout with themes from these stories, most of which directly relate to Wagner's operas. The paintings in this room are from the Siegfried saga.
These scenes are from the Siegfried saga.
The paintings in this room are from the Siegfried saga.
These scenes are from the Siegfried saga. I wonder where that door leads.
The closed door leads to the tower, which is not part of the tour. The king was making his way to this very door when he was arrested in 1886.
I wonder if Ludwig really meant to throw himself from the tower the night he was arrested.
You are now standing in the king's bedroom. The theme of the bedroom is Tristan and Isolde, the tragic love story retold in Wagner's opera. The opera was given its first performance in Munich in 1865, and a 20-year-old Ludwig attended. This is probably the most elaborate and expensive bedroom ever created. It took 14 woodcarvers 4.5 years to create this room. It was this kind of extravagance that bankrupted the king. In the years before his death, he found it increasingly difficult to find money from any source. The richly carved bed, with its canopy, resembles a Gothic building and its turrets. The bed's draperies were handmade by dozens of Bavarian seamstresses. The washstand actually worked by bringing in water from a stream above the castle.
Maybe Ludwig thought all this luxury would help him sleep. Ludwig sure had a thing for swans.
In the corner is a brown tiled stove with clay figures of Tristan and Isolde. Scenes from the opera Tristan and Isolde. Scenes from the opera Tristan and Isolde. This is Ludwig's private chapel. The king was a devout Catholic, as were all of the Wittelsbacher rulers. They supported the Roman Church even when other European countries were dominated by Protestantism. The stained glass window depicts St. Louis receiving the last sacraments.
It's a beautiful crucifix. Ivory and gold. The Black Madonna of Altadine. I wonder what her story is all about.
The paintings above the altar depict St. Louis surrounded by the seraphim. An interesting side note. For a period of about a year, the Louis images in all 3 castles were ordered to be covered up with black cloth on the unfathomable whim of the king.
A king saint? I wonder if Ludwig pictured himself that way, or maybe he just wanted to be that way.
This is the king's living room. The walls are decorated with scenes from the Lohengrin saga. The king first saw Wagner's opera Lohengrin when he was 16, and it so affected him that he considered it a form of enlightenment. The tragedy of Lohengrin was his essential loneliness. This too was Ludwig's own fate. Ludwig withdrew more and more into his fantasy world of epic heroes and absolute monarchy. An ideal he was determined to create in his castles if he could not have it in his real life. He only wanted to be alone with his dreams, so much so that even his servants were kept at a distance and were not allowed to look at him.
What were you afraid they'd see?